You and I, even though you're an old shriveled up white guy and I'm a beautiful gold Asian dude, we share two things in common: mitochondrial Eve and chromosomal Adam Y.
There is tons of archaeological and historical evidence for evolution, right? We don't have any single evidence of the Adam and Eve, right?
Okay, give me one piece of evidence of macroevolution.
Right, the Homo habilis.
What were the first signs of Homo habilis?
The first signs of Homo habilis was a little scrap of jaw and a couple of tooth crowns.
So in order to walk upright, you need a pelvis more like this. However, they also decided that the hip was damaged and that it needed to be repaired, so they took a saw and reshaped it and made it look more like a human pelvis.
If all life started in the water, then we are connected with everything on this planet, even if it is bananas, right?
No, that's called DNA, the information that created the entire universe. And in order for information to exist, guess what? There has to be an intelligence behind that information. So that would only support and lend to the intelligent design theory. What you just said is only supporting a biblical worldview.
Gotcha, bitch!
If he were telling the truth, he wouldn't have told us. Unless, of course, he knew you wouldn't believe the truth, even if you told it to you.
You don't know science.
But according to your belief system, you believe all life started from Adam and Eve, right?
Yes,
Right.
and the science supports that, Kravis. When you look at our DNA, you and I, even though you're an old shriveled up white guy and I'm a beautiful gold Asian dude, we share two things in common: mitochondrial Eve and chromosomal Adam Y. You see that? We all come from a single source, Kravis. Adam and Eve. Science supports the Bible, not us just evolving randomly all over the globe at different parts of times and then coming together and then copulating. Because if that's the case, not every single one of us would be able to have that two things in common. If what the evolutionists say that this ape evolved over here and then a woman ape evolved over there and then they started having sex and then a few apes over there evolved, guess what? That doesn't even fit in with the narrative of the actual data. But if you understood it, you wouldn't think that Jesus is a fairy tale and you wouldn't be indoctrinated in the last 5 years by the cult of scientism. You don't know science.
First of all, there is tons of archaeological and historical evidence for evolution, right? We don't have any single evidence of the Adam and Eve, right?
Okay, give me one piece of evidence of macroevolution.
Right, the Homo habilis.
Are you trying to talk about Australopithecus, Lucy?
Not Lucy, Homo habilis.
What were the first signs of Homo habilis?
The first signs of Homo habilis was a little scrap of jaw and a couple of tooth crowns. And these would have been really interesting and would have probably been what the Leakeys spent their time on. It's just that not long after that, Mary Leakey found the cranium of what became known as Zinjanthropus, this strange creature with a small brain, a large flat face. Such a dramatic find that I think it put the little jaw and the couple of tooth crowns in the shade. But then a year after the Zinj discovery, they started to find the fossils, which were the basis of their announcement that they thought they had found the toolmaker. So these were fossils that had a larger brain and hands and feet that were, they thought, remarkably modern human-like. So Zinj had a relatively small career as the maker of the stone tools from Moldavai, and he was replaced in 1964 by Homo habilis as the toolmaker.
What about Homo habilis?
It is a proof that the Homo sapiens came from Homo habilis, right? It took millions of years to be in this state we are currently in, right? And we don't know what will happen after 5,000 years, how we will change. This is how evolution works. It doesn't take hundreds of years. It takes millions of years, right?
Time out, bro. Because first and foremost, let me just address the missing link. The missing link was Lucy, Australopithecus. And it was not a human. It was a bonobo that fell 30 feet off of a tree.
Now, they believe that Lucy walked upright. That's why they want to call her an ape-man fossil. That's why they say that she was in the line of human evolution. And one of the main reasons they believe this is because of Lucy's pelvis. Now, when they originally found the pelvis, they realized it was flared out like a chimpanzee, which means she couldn't have walked upright. So in order to walk upright, you need a pelvis more like this. However, they also decided that the hip was damaged and that it needed to be repaired, so they took a saw and reshaped it and made it look more like a human pelvis, allowing her to walk upright. But a more recent reconstruction has shown that her gluteal muscles were actually like those of an ape, which would have made her walking unstable. So even if she did do some upright walking, it wasn't like a human. Okay, as you can see on the skull of Lucy, this is called the foramen magnum right here, and they've actually discovered what these are like from other Australopithecines that they've discovered. And the spine enters at an angle like this. Well, that allows her to walk on all fours, which is again very ape-like. If you look at a human, you can see that we're more at a 90-degree angle, but she was like this. Again, just another attribute of being an ape. Okay, one thing that we should also point out about the skull is that from the Australopithecines, the other fossils they found out that their inner ears were shaped like the inner ears of apes. Our inner ear is completely different from the Australopithecines, and that inner ear allows us to walk upright. So once again, this is great proof that she was actually just an ape and not a human ancestor.
So when you talk about there's evidence for macroevolution, no. And when you talk about Homo habilis, them discovering a humanoid fossil record doesn't say anything. I mean, I don't dispute the Denisovans and all these things because guess what? The biblical account addresses that when it talks about all of these abominations. When the angels who kept not their first estate copulated with the women, they bore giants. And then these giants started doing all kinds of human-animal hybrid experiments. And you had all kinds of lion-faced men of Moab. You have these mermaids and minotaurs and centaurs and cyclopses. All kinds of weird freaking abominations that humanity started worshiping as gods. Because they looked at these creatures far superior to them in their weak and feeble state as humans. And that's why the Bible says that they worship the creation rather than the creator. Are you following?
I am following you, right? But I think you don't understand evolution correctly. I mean, if you have read the book of Charles Darwin, and if you, have read the works of his grandfather Erasmus Darwin, right, you will understand that evolution is continuation of the primates. You know how in science it is proven that all life started in the water, not from mud, like it's mentioned in the Bible, right? If all life started in the water, then we are connected with everything on this planet, even if it is bananas, right? Anything, we are related.
No, that's called DNA, the information that created the entire universe. And in order for information to exist, guess what? There has to be an intelligence behind that information. So that would only support and lend to the intelligent design theory. What you just said is only supporting a biblical worldview.
Gotcha, bitch.
And let me just address what Charles Darwin said in a letter to one of his friends. In 1881, July 3rd, Charles Darwin wrote to William Graham, and this is what he says. But then with me, the horrid doubt always arises whether the convictions of man's mind, which has been developed from the mind of the lower animals, are of any value or at all trustworthy. Would anyone trust in the convictions of a monkey's mind if there are any convictions in such a mind? So in other words, just 10 years after Charles Darwin hypothesized that rationality and morality was a mere byproduct of the unguided processes of evolution, he is now doubting if he can even trust his own rationality. So when you tell me, oh, I don't know enough, bro, Kravis, son, you don't know enough. Just because you're older than me doesn't mean that you know more than me. I know exponentially more than you in every single dimension. Every single dimension that we've discussed so far, I've completely destroyed you. I need you to understand that, because if you don't actually understand that you are being completely destroyed at every single turn, then you will leave this conversation gaining nothing from it. And you will most likely end up dying in your sin, which is a complete travesty because you become an atheist in the last 5 years of your life. I mean, goodness gracious. When Paul said, finish the race, bro, finish the race, cross the damn line. Holy shit, Kravis.
Why should I finish the line if I am not convinced, right? This makes no sense. If the Bible cannot convince me, why should I finish the
So
line?
what was the last 40 minutes of, have I not been convincing you? Has me humiliating you in the last 40 minutes and completely destroying every single one of your points not convinced you? I mean, if that's not gonna convince you, no wonder why you can't be convinced. And you wanna blame God? Blame yourself, Kravis.
Alright, first of all, right, you have not humiliated me in the first place. Secondly, you could not answer me, refute the miracles.
I answered and refuted every single fucking one of your statements, Kravis. Man, just go in peace, man. Kravis, I did my best. People like you can't be helped. You just go your way, man. If you love something enough, just let it go. Y'all follow for more. Peace.
If he were telling the truth, he wouldn't have told us. Unless, of course, he knew you wouldn't believe the truth, even if you told it to you.